Hello and welcome to session 280 in the AISafety.com reading group. Tonight, Volkan Ergan will present his work on the thesis that no action we can feasibly take will stop humans from being obsolete within 3 to 4 years. Volkan Ergan has been a member of this reading group since back in I think 2016 or 17. That was a really different world where people were discussing whether something like the transformer algorithm would ever be possible. It feels like so many years ago. I'm very pleased to call Volkan my friend, and I also in fact employed him for my startup that failed exclusively because of me and not at all because of him. So I'm very happy to hear your presentation. Thank you, Volkan.
Thank you, Sorun, for the nice introduction. So, let me briefly introduce myself before going to the concrete reasons, if you don't mind. So, I'm 35 years old, and I've been playing chess since I was 5 years old. I'm not very good, but I can say I'm in an upper intermediate level, maybe. So, the first time that I heard about AI was 1996, where it was in the news that Kasparov, the then world champion, faced the computer, the AI system called Deep Blue from IBM, which ended with Kasparov's win. And I was 8 years old. And then just 1 year later, and I was still watching closely, wondering what will happen. And to my surprise, Deep Blue then succeeded in beating the world champion. And when I thought about it, I just said to myself, well, in this past 1 year, Kasparov didn't change much. I mean, he was more or less the same. And Deep Blue really advanced quite a bit. So when you extrapolate, I thought, well, I mean, AI will eventually be better than us in everything. And I think it was a nice logic. I think I was right. So years later, in 2012, I started my master's thesis and I decided to use some ML, some machine learning for data analysis associated with genetics. And in time, I again became interested in existential risk. Those were the times where neural networks were making a comeback, and it was apparent that they were really good. The future would be bright. I thought, well, this AI dominance, meaning that AI will be better than us in almost anything, will be in this century. And I was afraid. I thought that must be stopped because we just cannot tell what will happen after that. It's a danger for both humanity and all the animals, all the living beings on this planet. And coincidentally, again, around this time, I heard about the opinions of Ted Kaczynski, who is also known as Unabomber. And I thought, well, in order to permanently end the danger, the risk of AI taking over, we should just destroy, abolish the techno-industrial system. So for around 2 years, I was into eco-activism as a member of a slightly illegal eco-activist group. After that, and after some disillusionments, I wasn't that active anymore, but of course my interest went on. Around 2020, I get to know GPT-3, which is based on the very successful transformer architecture, which was introduced in 2017 as a proof of concept. Around that time, my opinion about the AI dominance was, well, it will probably happen before 2060, and we may be able to prevent it with maybe around 20% chance. In 2022, I saw Dolly 2, and it was it was a very interesting experience for me. I was really shocked, really surprised. It was almost a religious experience, I can tell you. I couldn't believe a machine could create such an art. My timeline went a little earlier to around 2040, and I thought, well, there is probably less chance of prevention, around 10%. After that, I continued to ferociously read, think, listen about AI, both the technical aspects and the social effects, the philosophy of it, etc. And right now, my opinion is that we will probably have AI dominance around 2027, and our chance of preventing that is practically negligible, I can say. How will it happen? Well, there are lots of theories. Super Ebola GPT, it sounds funny, but basically it says someone can just create a super virus that will destroy all humanity. Eliezer, he talks about nanofactories, the molecular factories, that he says we have molecules that the AI may want. There's the risk of ongoing risk of nuclear escalation, which may get even worsened by some actor that is using AI. And of course, there's the paperclip scenario that all of us know very well. I think all of those and more are possible. I don't ignore them, but those are not my default reason that I think we will be obsolete within a few years. My default reason is the abrupt and sudden collapse of capitalism worldwide. How will it happen? Now, this is a summary. Automation. It starts with automation, which will, I think, bring a deflationary spiral. Uh, I want to mention something here about deflation. You heard about Ozempic, right? The drug.
Yes.
I have, yeah, and it's from Denmark. So maybe I should congratulate you. It's a very nice product. Uh, I heard some news that the sales of food items are going down because of Ozempic. And it's just an early warning, but maybe early example that I think we will be seeing several times, much more frequently in the coming years, and just something that will, just one of the many things that will cause a drop in consumption and so deflation. This will bring, I think, automation and deflation. Uh, it will significantly diminish the bargaining power of the working class. So it will definitely, inevitably lead to lower and lower wages, which will, where the limit is, I think, zero. Mass layoffs, mass unemployment. Middle class and even upper middle class will need to sell their property in order to afford a living because they won't have any income by then. Government will certainly push more for welfare, but I think it won't be sustainable for very long. There will be there will probably be an oligopoly in the hands of a very small amount of people, a very, a very small elite group, which control the computation, basically. Because in the future, who controls computation will have the real power. So again, fiat money will become obsolete too because of that, of course. And supply chains collapse. This is one of I think this will be one of the most important aspects that will lead to our maybe uh, extinction. I don't want to say extinction, but let's say that. Because who will maintain them? The elite, the the class with the capital will have no motivation, no imperative to maintain those supply chains, and I think they will collapse. Because of surveillance, a very strong, very widespread surveillance, we, the people, won't have any means to change the situation. And I think finally this will end with the permanent divide of humanity into two classes, which is one of them is quite big, much more than 99%, and one of them is much smaller than 1%. And I can say it won't be an exaggeration if I say those two classes will, in practice, will be living in different planets. As you can see, there is nowhere here that any government would have neither time or any resource or any motivation to implement UBI or something like that. So, uh, I think you know about those guys, Mustafa Süleyman, Dario Amadou, and you probably saw those quotes too. So why did I feel the need to mention them again? Because you already know them. I mentioned those because, well, okay, we see them, we hear them, but I think we don't take those statements very seriously. I mean, I'm not talking about ordinary people. They won't, of course, take those seriously, but we as people who are already interested in this, in AI and AI risk, the X risk, I think we tend to look at those and, well, I mean, they are just speaking. They are just saying things. But I would suggest taking those more literally. For example, Mustafa Süleyman says that we will have 100 times larger models than GPT in just 1.5 years later. And I would suggest you to really, really think about the implications. You know about GPT-4? And even with diminishing returns, even with them, it will be, it's easy to say that these models will be at least 10 times more intelligent, more capable than GPT-4. Yeah. Then what? What will happen to us? Dario Amodei says that we are 2 or 3 years away from AI being at the level of generally well-educated human. So, what will happen to us then? In 3 years, it will go on par with us, and in 4 years, where will it be? In this quote, we can easily see that we are on the exponential curve, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. And one more thing, as people who are interested in AI safety, I think you will agree with me that those are dangerous, right? I mean, having a model, any agent possessing a model 100 times larger than GPT-4 is dangerous, right? So I would want you to think how you can prevent that, or can you prevent that? I mean, just one company, for example, the Inflection AI. What can you do to prevent Inflection AI from possessing such a strong AI model? I think we cannot do anything. Some facts: artists are almost gone. Copywriters, call center workers, voice actors, they are practically gone. There are many other professions that are going soon, and I mean very, very soon. Next year of 2025. That include engineers, architects, lawyers, teachers, doctors, therapists, and who is left? Almost nobody. Now, in the last meeting of our reading group, I heard something like, well, there are no There are not much developments after GPT-4, and that's not true, really. There are many developments, many groundbreaking developments, I can say. There are just some examples, and they are not very handpicked examples. Just very recent papers that I think may play an important role in the advancement of practical application of AI. For example, Zephyr Alpha is a 7 billion parameter LLM model, and its performance is comparable with Llama, which has 70 billion parameters. And if you think about it, Llama 2 came in July this year, 3 months ago, okay? And think about it. There is an order of magnitude, one order of magnitude advancement in just 3 months in terms of efficiency. It's unbelievable, if you ask me. Another paper, Attention Sinks, makes it possible for language models to stay fluent in a long conversation, which is again a very nice paper, which I think will make it much more convenient to create AI models that can take a role as therapists, lawyers, call center workers, etc. Another paper, Language Agent Research, enhances large language models with planning, feedback, and learning. You know, agents are quite popular right now, and there are many groundbreaking research about agent models. And I think, especially the next year, 2024, we will see much more incredible advancements in this area. I mean, AI models, language model-based AI that can plan and take action itself. Another paper, Self-Taught Optimizer, a language model info scaffolding program for the model to improve itself. It basically writes Python code to make its own capabilities better. Again, very nice paper, very groundbreaking paper, if you ask me. And this paper has a very interesting result, if you ask me. They test their approach with ChatGPT 3.5, okay, and ChatGPT 4. And interestingly, ChatGPT 3.5 becomes worse when you try to self-improve. But ChatGPT 4 becomes better. I find it interesting because this means ChatGPT 4 is already above a certain threshold that allows it to improve itself. Another paper, very recent paper, hierarchical policies for web actions using LLMs. It has very good results in terms of LLM-based agents completing web tasks, and I think it's very important because, as you know, the main interface of AI to interact with the real world will be web and APIs. So I think this kind of research is very important, and recently there are groundbreaking results. There are very significant results in this regard too. Final slide. I want you to think with me in a thought experiment. If you still think you can save the world, imagine you travel to 1935 and imagine you have all the knowledge of what happens since that date. My question for you would be, would you be able to stop World War II? And would you be able to stop the Holocaust? I think the answer is definitely not. None of us would be able to stop them. So what could we do? I think it would be a very bad idea to go to the people and say, well, I'm coming from the future and there will be a genocide and you need to get away. You need to move somewhere else because they will think you are crazy. Will a political struggle against Nazis work? Again, I think a very negligible probability. It is much more likely that you will just be imprisoned or killed by them. So what would be the best action that would maximize your utility? I think it would be probably being discreet, indirectly motivating people, for example, the victims of the Holocaust, to move away, but without mentioning genocide, by giving them other motivations. And maybe another approach maybe that you can talk to them such that they will be ready to flee as soon as they feel that a genocide is coming. Those, I think, may let you save dozens of people. But you cannot save everybody. I'm pretty sure of that. So I would just ask you if you still believe in the AI safety. And if you say, no, I wouldn't be able to stop the Holocaust if I was in 1935. So my question is, how can you reconcile this with the opinion that you can actually stop AI dominance, which is arguably a much more complex one because there's a superhuman intelligence at play here, and we have much smaller resources compared to the oligopoly that is composed of states and big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc. So I come to the conclusion that it's just not possible. It's not humanly possible. So the inevitable conclusion, what inevitably follows from this realization, is that the only reasonable thing, actually there are two reasonable things. You can just live as you like until the AI dominance. You can just have fun during the coming years, and I think that's a very good option. I certainly respect that. Or you may look for ways to save yourself and maybe your beloved ones. Those are the only two options that, let me say, only sensible options against AI dominance threat. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vulcan, for your presentation. I liked it. There was a lot of things that I want to reply to, but in general, I think this is basically what I have prepared my presentation for an answer for. So let me start my presentation here. So you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is like my standard format that I always use. So my name is Søren Elverlin. I won't actually talk very much about myself, but I'll just go right into my response to what I guessed Vulcan would say. I haven't actually seen his. But before I give the exact reply, I want to state my overall views, which are like I have also a very high probability of doom. I say something like 95%, where Vulcan says 99%. My median timeline is something like 5 years. That would be like 2028, 29. So it sounds like there is not much difference between what we think. I noticed also that a year ago I said 6 years. So my timelines have shrunk with exactly 1 year in 1 year. So maybe I'm not learning something enough. But the thing that probably is very different between Vulcan and I is I have a substantial model error factor in mind. Like there's a lot of unknown unknowns and known unknowns in my models. In particular, my timelines are really uncertain. I believe that Vulcan is probably overconfident in his timelines. I think there are many things that can shift them dramatically in both directions, and I want to talk about some of them here. I also want to state that I actually think we are talking about two reasonably different problems. There's the thing where everybody is obsolete and the AI take over, and these are quite different issues. Like everyone is obsolete. Well, that may include, like, I don't know, teachers and taxi drivers, which the AI doesn't really need. There are many tasks that humans need that the AI won't need in order to take over or self-sustain. I would perhaps even say 99% of all tasks in the current system are not like strictly necessary, either for a takeover or for a or for the AI to sustain itself without humans. So my arguments come in three parts. The first is that large language model performance isn't as impressive as we would think. In particular, minimum performance is really lacking. In order to make humans obsolete, we need multimodal performance, and there is still a substantial ways to go there. And the third is there are in fact actions we can take. More like pausing AI would be the most obvious one, and I think this is something that could totally happen. So there's two overall counter arguments. One is that we won't be obsolete by default so soon, or that we can take some kind of action to avoid it. So let me first talk about where current AIs are and why they don't provide so much mundane value. This here is my son's first grade homework. So this is in Danish, but he had to cut out the numbers from 1 to 12, put them in rows and columns here, so all of it sums to 22. This was his task in first grade. So I said, okay, let's ask GPT-4, can it in fact do first grade homework? And well, sure, it says here is an answer, and you can see that the bottom side here, that comes up to 35. And after writing this, it immediately realized, oops, this is not correct. Here is a better one, and here is one where everything sums up to 22, except when you actually like try to do the summation, it doesn't work. And I argue that, hey, this is in fact not right, and oh, sorry. Then it tries some new things that are also like totally ridiculously wrong. Try some more, and then tries to prove that this task is impossible, and prove some more, and tries some more, and sorry, eventually it just fails. Sometimes it can't solve first grade homework. And for AI safety, the maximum performance is really critical. Like, can it in fact self-improve one step? Can it in fact invent something? But for making humans obsolete, then minimum performance is really important. Like something like self-driving cars would be an example where minimum performance is really crucial. The second argument is for multimodal challenges. Like most of the work we've seen has been on text completion, and this is a domain where, sure, AIs do really well, but there are many other things. Images are surprisingly good, but there are substantial things missing, and including things that are easy for humans. Videos are even worse. Both the image generation is way worse than cameras, but also understanding what goes on in a video is hard for AI at the current level. The big modality that needs to be conquered in order to make humans obsolete is robotics. I think there is a good chance that robotics is coming, perhaps with the Gemini model, but like this is a big unknown, and it's hard to have a really high confidence. There is probably still a lot of work to be done here, and in order to make humans totally redundant, we need to automate all the modalities that humans can do. So if there's just one, if it's just like haptics that doesn't work or something like that, no, not haptics, but just some subfield of robotics that doesn't work, well, then humans will not be obsolete. And now the thing that I think is probably most relevant: can we take action to not be obsolete? And I think we totally can. The problem here is each of us are individually faced with this problem. Would you rather stand in this line here, or would you rather die? And Humans are just we haven't increased the sanity waterline, and I think many. I would not be surprised if many of the people here in the reading group right now would say, "I would not stand. It's too cringe" or something like that. With the predictable result, then everybody dies. Like this is a dramatic failure of rationality, but I think that is the way we go. Unfortunately. So this is like one of my serious. Yeah, Ali is asking when's the next protest, and you can look that up at pause.ai. So my overall claim, really easy, is that AI safety is in fact not that difficult. It's really easy, but we won't do it. So this is like the counterclaim to Vulcans. There are no actions that would stop this. I believe there are in fact really easy actions that would stop this. It's just that we're not going to do it. So how would that work in practice to get a pause? The first and central and thing we need to do is to convince people that AI risk is a big deal, and that is like the key, the big thing, because AI risk is not something that there's a big constituency that wants. It's basically an accident, and no one wants that. And at this point, it's even a very very predictable accident. So and also the thing DeepMind is doing is trying to solve intelligence. They're not trying to make everybody obsolete. It's just that making everybody obsolete is an unintended side effect of the thing that they are actually doing. And this is the kind of thing where we may stop it. We may, in a democratic process, just say pause to 3 companies. Like I know Inflection is there maybe as a 4th, but mostly it's 3 companies. We need to say stop to, and like we say stop to so many companies, right? And if we find some way to do it, either an argument or a political process or something that caused the United States to do that, then well, that would have a substantial chance of also causing China to pause for the same reason, and that could easily spread. And we could even like there is in fact substantial support in according to opinion polls for this, and once we have a pause, it's probably possible to extend it until we have like a proof of safety, and we haven't got a proof of safety yet, then the pause will be extended. Like this is a thing that could happen. The big thing that needs to happen first is someone needs to get the ball rolling, because as long as 5 people are standing in the picket line, it's not something that's gonna work. And once 100,000 people are saying are making the exact same arguments, then it becomes way more serious, and then the ball is rolling. I'm trying to do something like this with AISafety.com. I don't expect I'll be successful. There are also some smaller arguments. I don't know if I should really include them. First is like we've seen scaling, and the continued scaling seems likely, but it's certainly not inevitable. Like many technologies have hit strong diminishing returns at some point, and it's quite possible that AI will do that in the next 4 years. I think we've also seen some of these AI companies, in particular OpenAI, performing dramatically above expectations in many ways. They seem like a really competently run company delivering a lot, and they may regress to the mean like many other companies and be like as good or bad as Facebook. Also, in order to get to obsolete people, like there's a lot of human scale affordances that's been built into our society and our technology and everything. This needs to be adapted, and so many people are working on this. Like there are so many jobs for people trying to get a language model to do something inside a business that previously only humans could do, because there are all these affordances that need to be built up around that. People are working on this, but it's just hard work, and there's a lot of it, and not that many people doing it compared to the fact that this touches everything. So 3-4 years, like it's not obvious that we will be anywhere near a completion of that work. So where does all this lead us? Well, I'll start out by making a fallacious argument using the conjunction fallacy, and then I'll talk about why that is wrong. So there's the idea that scaling will continue for the next 4 years. Many things don't do that, but let's put 90%. Will that reach a sufficient level where we are obsolete? Let's put 90% on that. Multimodality, will video and audio catch up? Probably. Will robotics also catch up? That's a bit more unlikely. And in order for humans to be obsolete, we need robots to be ubiquitous, and that's like a taller order within 4 years. So maybe 70%. Um, all the affordances that we are currently making are replicated such that a language model can just be plugged into all processes. That seems also like a tough thing. And all of this needs to happen without a pause for humans to be obsolete in 3 to 4 years. So the obvious thing you could do is multiply this, and that would be the conjunction fallacy, because then you would get like something like 0.0001, because and you can't do that because these are highly dependent. So a better way to do this would be to conditioned on the first, then what's the probability of the second, condition on these two, what is the probability of the third, and that's a really, really hard thing to do in practice, because very soon, once you start conditioning on 4, 5, 6 things, then you live in a world that is dramatically different from the one that you're currently inhabiting, and a lot of your previous understandings fail, and your assumptions are disproven and things like that. It's just really, really hard to put actual numbers on this. Um, like another reason is that the tasks are related. Like there are underlying factors like within this, like how regular is reality, and that's something that if reality is like regular and easy for AI to learn, well, then a lot of these go up at the same time. And also, if there is a success in one of these, probably there will be more investment, and it could also go the other way. So multiplying this is really, really hard. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to after making all these numbers, I am throwing them all out as a good rationalist and saying, with the exception of the no pause, which I think is really special here, I give 50% credence to the following statement. In 2027, humans are 50% obsolete, and we have the fact that we will soon be completely obsolete in plain sight. So that's like a clear roadmap, and everybody can see, like in a couple of years we will be 100% obsolete. So I think this will in fact make actions a lot easier. I don't think we'll do it. In fact, I think we'll die. But this will make action, in theory, dramatically easier, and there is indeed some action we can take that will prevent us all both from dying and from all of us being obsolete. That was my argument. So, Vulcan, do you prefer that I start with some specific criticism or investigation of some of your points, or do you want to dig into some of mine?
You choose. Doesn't matter.
Okay. So if you read, so one of the things I'm wondering is, in your presentation you talked about we would see more and more automation in the economy, and this would lead to a lot of power being concentrated, and this seems like in theory a good thing, in the sense that more and more value will be produced. The profits will go to a small number of people, but a lot of value will be produced, and then suddenly the supply chains collapse, and like it seems like automation makes things better and better and creates more and more value, and we get better and better drugs, and a lot of nice things happen, and then suddenly the supply chain collapses. Could you say why does the supply chain collapse? Like, now we have AIs that are managing the supply chain. That ought to make it even better, right?
Yes, there's some amount of automation in the supply chain and everything, and it will increase, I think. But it's not like everything will be better and better and more greater, more happier, and then suddenly the supply chain will collapse. I mean, that wasn't my argument. I'm not saying things will be much better until then. I'm actually saying things will be worse. Things will be getting worse because of deflation and unemployment. So, okay, there will be automation, but it won't be evenly distributed. The automation will mostly or almost completely benefit a very, very small elite group. And when you look at history, you can just tell that the elites tend to be psychopaths. They just don't care about us. They don't care about masses. And up to now, they needed us as workers for labor. And my claim is that in the post-labor world, the automation world, they will no longer need us.
Okay.
So, how are the elites receiving their wealth, though? I mean, are you saying they're receiving their wealth through shares in AI related companies?
Yes, mainly that's correct. But
But my my objection would be that a lot of retirement funds are index funds, and a lot of people, I would say most people with retirement funds have some stake in AI related companies. So I don't see how most people get cut out.
they do, yes. But the wealth, even now, is very unevenly, unequally distributed. I mean, that's a fact.
Mhm.
Uh, and one of my claims was that money itself is on the way to become obsolete because in at some stage people will certainly, in my opinion, lose all their trust in the financial system because of widespread unemployment. And those people with AI funds, AI company funds in their, it can be retirement or anything, any kind of investment, doesn't matter. I believe they will eventually need to sell those in order to survive because there will no longer be salaries or wages or any kind of regular income. They will sell their properties, small investments, their cars, etc., just to survive. And it will only contribute the wealth getting even more concentrated, in my opinion.
Uh, okay, and that doesn't happen to the rich.
Sorry,
Does that process also happen to the rich
which process?
of selling off their wealth?
What do you mean? I mean, the wealthy is getting wealthier, basically. That's the process. Until the wealth itself turns to something else. I hypothesize that the real value of the future, and I'm not talking about the far away future. I'm talking about 3 or 4 years later, will mainly be computation, not the paper money, not the fiat money. But until then, it will be, of course, much easier to convert, and there will be many chances, many opportunities to convert your fiat money to computation and other things, other material things, maybe that will be useful in the post-automation world. And basically, at the end, the public uh, will have useless fiat money in their hands, and uh, they won't be able to buy anything with that, to be
Um,
honest.
So how do rich people buy things then? Do they sell hard computation? Do they like trade stocks?
I don't think there will be any stocks in the future. There may be a collapse of the stocks.
No, wait.
Very likely to me. Okay.
Okay. I think I want some clarity on Vulcan's scenario here. So, like, maybe what Lau Mein is trying to get at here is that he doesn't see why the rich would continue to, I guess, exist at all in this scenario for much longer. That's frankly my question as well. So, like, why are the rich in this instance? Why do they continue to exist? Why aren't they just like, I don't know, rapidly made obsolete as well and scammed out of all of their possessions by much larger entities? Of course, Soren, do you have seem like you want to say something?
Yeah. So I think like the way I understand Vulcan's model, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's probably going to be something like 3 or 4 companies, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, who are going to have their stock prices increase really, really dramatically over the next couple of years, to the point where they will literally crowd out all other investments. So right now, access to capital is like it's not completely fairly distributed in the world, far from it, but reasonably broadly. And like Nvidia shares are far less broadly. That there is far more unevenly how people will have value if most of the value in the world goes to these 4 companies. So that would cause a dramatic bifurcation in the economy, in that there are some people who have enough shares in these companies as they increase in value that the returns from these shares will basically be enough for them to continue to live on. And this is like the rich part of the people. And then there are some people who don't have these shares or have extremely minimal shares in this. And these people or these countries will then be totally crowded out of the economy and be unable to contribute anything, because these 4 companies with their automation are able to just provide everything dramatically cheaper than what these countries could ever do.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
Easily.
this sounds kind of like an Age of M scenario to me, where you are trying to do an analysis of, okay, suppose you get M's or AIs or whatever, what happens to the flesh and blood human? And I think that I am interested in such an analysis, but I feel like there's just so my problem with your scenario here is, I think, similar to my problem with Hansen's model for what happens to the humans the flesh and blood humans once you get M, and it's that why are the property rights being respected? Like, why are they being protected in some way? Why are they not being like scammed out of everything they own by slightly more intelligent entities who are running 10,000 times faster? Why are they not like just their decision-making process? Why isn't that just completely disrupted, and all of the massive value they hold relative to the standards of all of the AIs or Ns or whatever floating around? Why isn't that just captured by the AI? Right? Like if I'm thinking, my model is something like, say, imagine you have like a fairly wealthy but senile old person, right? And they have no family members, and they have to rely on the rest of the existing legal system to protect their wealth. But I would contend that it's quite likely if you had, say, if that person was in proximity to a lot of people who were quite poor but fairly intelligent, they would get scammed. And I think that the more competitive you're making the whole world, the world, the more entities you're creating, the greater the disparity in intelligence. I just feel like it's going to be like taking candy from a baby, and I don't see why, even in your scenario, anyone would be able to continue to be wealthy for long.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you, actually. I mean, we are on the same page because I think all of us, I mean, every single human will eventually be obsolete. That includes elites. Okay, I'm not saying that they will become immortal. I'm just talking about the near future here. I mean, the next 3 or 4 years, or maybe say 5.
Okay,
But
so but
in
like
10 years, in
in
20 years, of course,
okay,
of course, they will also become useless against
all right,
billions of times more intelligent AI.
okay, I
So my model of this is that there are two bad trends going on, um, and these two trends are happening at the same time. So one of them is that everybody is going to be obsolete, and the other trend is that AI is going to take over and kill us all. And these are two different things. So I think what Vulcan is pointing out here is we are on a trajectory where everybody will be obsolete. And I think the argument basically carries from Vulcan. And Ali is saying that there is another trend going on at the same time where AI is becoming smarter, will be able to scam us and eventually scam us on such a large scale that it will be just a takeover.
That's
And that is another trend that is happening. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
both of them
possible.
can
That's
be true at the
possibility.
same time.
Yes, of course. I mean, as I said, mine was like a default trajectory. I'm not ignoring the black swan events of a rogue AI killing everybody. Those are perfectly possible. Let's You can consider my scenario as a boring scenario. I mean, there are more exciting scenarios, of course, but I don't deny them. They are possible. Some teenager, some very intelligent teenager with a with an advanced LLM model agent in his hands may create super Ebola GPT or may start nuclear war. Those are possibilities.
I think it's not just theoretical possibilities. I would be surprised if there is no one who hasn't tried yet to make a large language model like as an agent that tries to scam people and obtain more resources for itself in this
They tried
classic
that.
scenario. I think people are already doing that.
Look up Chaos GPT, for
I,
example.
I haven't heard about it. It was just a guess that people were doing this.
No, they tried. They tried.
Yeah,
But they are not that strong right now.
yeah, I agree.
Not next year. I don't know.
So I guess this humans being obsolete is like um, a default case to some in some extent. Like
Yes.
we could be killed by a fool, we could be killed by nuclear war, we could be killed in some kind of race condition, we could be killed by nanomachines, we could be killed in so many different ways. And
April.
even if we are not killed in all these ways, we will become obsolete.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes, that's what I'm
so
saying.
that's kind of how these two trends work together. That the argument that we are obsolete is like a lower default, slower bad thing, uh, and being turned into paper clips by a Foom is something that happens dramatically faster.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, if somebody from the future or some oracle god maybe came to me and said, well, every single people died in 2024, I wouldn't be extremely surprised.
Mm. All right. I have some more objections. Like I just looked it up, and like 2/3 of Nvidia's stock is held by institutional investors, which are basically people who are helping to manage retirement accounts. So like a redistribution of wealth towards mostly towards like people who heavily invest in tech stocks and also people with retirement accounts doesn't sound apocalyptic.
So I think Vulcan said 1% of the population has a significant amount of shares in this.
Mm.
Um, like it obviously depends on like what is a significant
Mm.
uh, number of shares, but I think like many people don't have that much money in their retirement funds, and most retirement funds only have a very small fraction of their wealth in Nvidia. Um, I don't
Think of
think
it.
these are necessarily in at odds with each other.
But the majority of Nvidia is of the value in Nvidia is like owned by retirement funds, I think, or something close to that.
Are people able to access their retirement funds before they retire? That's another question, by the way.
Yes. Yes. I think I know in the United States you can borrow money against it at the least.
Because I mean, people will obviously. I mean, none of us here, uh, or most people won't be able to retire. That's quite obvious in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, in the U.S. you can take out money from your retirement fund early, but you have to pay
Yeah,
a
I
penalty
understand.
for it. Yeah.
But I mean, maybe this will make it easier to understand. You can think of it as a pump and dump scheme. I mean, there's an entity, its price goes irrationally high. Everybody thinks become, it will go even higher. And then the big money, the whales in crypto jargon, suddenly silt. And
What
the
what
value
what
goes
is the pump and dump scheme?
the stocks here. In this context, the stocks.
Okay, but the stocks are actual ownership in the AI related entities. They're the ones that are supposed to get wealthy
Yes, but
from it.
my again, my theory is that the elite, the ruling class, will be able to exchange the money, the stocks, for something that is actually valuable in the real world before dumping that onto the masses. If that makes sense.
But in your scenario, like Nvidia and Google stocks are the only things that have any value. I mean, their ownership in the AI companies are earning all the money in the world.
Yes, yes, but I mean, the money itself will eventually uh, lose. I mean, money is a piece of paper, right?
Well,
The only reason that
but like, how does like Nvidia stock lose all of its value? I mean, most
it's
of it is not held by like a very small number of people. Most of it's held by.
it's
I,
easy. I mean, the values, the value of a stock of any kind of financial instruments is usually based on expectations, right?
Mhm,
It's based on future. And I'm
mhm.
saying there is no future. How can those instruments hold value when people realize that there's no future?
What
And
does that mean when people realize there's no future?
there's no future.
Let-
There is a future
We
for
for
go
the people
obsolete.
who own the stock, right?
We go obsolete. The system collapses.
okay.
Present collapses. We go obsolete. There's no
So I
future
have like
that
one
those instruments
minor
are.
object. I have an objection to that. Like, it feels to me like you're sort of assuming implicitly in this scenario that whatever AIs we've got that are doing all of this automation, presumably they're also pretty general and they've got their own economy running. In which case, I don't see why like the stocks of companies, and if they are implicitly respecting property rights, I don't see why the stocks of companies like OpenAI, Nvidia, etc., wouldn't continue to keep on going up. Because the AIs would still think that, hey, this is great. We've totally got a future, right? This is, of course, assuming they respect property rights, including human property rights.
Yeah, but nothing increases forever. You know, there are
Yes,
many
but for
financial
that,
bubbles in
like,
history.
so this is like a separate claim I want to carve out and ask you about, which is that will there be an AI economy, and how long do you think that would last for? And like, because I would guess yes, and also I would guess it would last for several billion years. Like the raw matter is there. I don't see what. Yeah, I mean, I think that stars will continue to produce energy for that much time. It seems like a reasonable thing to claim to me.
I mean,
So if you're claiming that the AI economy also collapses within like 10 or 20 years, I
AI
guess
economy
I'd be
may go on.
curious to hear.
I mean, AI economy may go on for a very long time with AIs, but not with us. We
Okay,
Yeah,
certainly will not be there to witness that.
all right. But
yeah,
then what I'm trying to get at there is that things like, say, if the AI economy continues, and also if they respect property rights of things like companies like Nvidia own the shares to GPUs or to like, I don't know, certain GPU technologies. Okay. So like if the AIs themselves buy Nvidia stock and the AIs are running something like Nvidia and that corporation is accruing a lot of value, or at least much more value than we can imagine, but maybe not a relatively large share of the total AI economy. Nevertheless, that's still a lot of value. And I would reasonably think the value of Nvidia would keep on going up in that scenario.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, at some point, we cannot all be rich. I mean, not all of us can be rich. And
So
I would,
I don't think we would be rich, right? I'm not making that claim. So the claim I'm making is that I think that if you had some scenario, so I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that something like Nvidia wouldn't continue to persist for that long, because frankly, this whole scenario to me, the problem with it is that it's trying to analyze a non-equilibrium system when it's going through some massive shocks. And I don't know how to do this, right? I know how to like solve for equilibrium in the limit, but then the limit just says, it's all just electronic, right? The humans are just eventually no longer around. But in the equilibrium period until there, it's like, what the heck happens? It's just going to be so chaotic that it seems like it's hard to say, well, this is the sort of thing that will happen. This is what won't happen. So I guess like I'm pretty skeptical that even in your scenario, assuming that like I'm making the same assumptions as you, that you can really say like what's going to happen in that, I don't know, period before the humans become like in this transition period from the human to AI economy. I don't see how you're able to really predict things in much detail. I think that like something weird and crazy is going to happen in your scenario, and that it would eventually go to the AI economy, and eventually just means like years, maybe a decade, and then you have some like rapid growth, and then things go even more insane. But that's about as much as I feel like you can say about this scenario. There's
I
just
see.
too many. There's just too much chaos.
I mean, there will be chaos. I'm sure of that. But I would uh, ask all of you to think about the concept of property here. What does it mean for something to belong to me? Currently, for example,
I
I
mean,
say
I'm just not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I say I have a house, but what guarantees it? I mean, if armed people come and say this house belongs to us now, what can I do? The only thing that guarantees the property rights is the state, right? Nothing else. Only the state. And what will happen when the states themselves become dysfunctional? Will OpenAI or NVIDIA guarantee our property rights? I don't think so. The thing is that both in nature and history, and states are a relatively new invention. But normally, by default, property rights are only guaranteed by power, only by the degree to which you can protect them, right? So I think this will also be the case in the near future.
So I think
I
again we are distinguishing between like the path where all humans slowly get obsolete, more or less slowly, and the abrupt takeover scenario. And the thing we're talking about where you suddenly don't own your house because the state collapses. This seems more related to the takeover scenario than the
I mean,
gradual.
I just don't really get the weird focus on the elites. I mean, you're assuming that they would like, let's see, you're saying that NVIDIA and OpenAI would basically just have all of the power in the world, which I can totally see happen. And then the actual people who run the companies would essentially have all physical force in the world, which I am not completely sure about. Um, hmm.
I think they will have the physical force, yeah,
Yeah, okay. And
and a very
I
big
mean,
force.
yeah, okay. Let's say that Sam Altman has all the power in the world. Let's say that Sam Altman is literally God. Um, he is a West Coast liberal who will then exterminate all the poor people. I don't see it.
Uh, I no, I mean they don't need to exterminate us. I
Okay.
mean we will just go obsolete ourselves
No,
after
No, I
killing
mean,
us.
I just don't see like the sudden jump from like Sam Altman has all of the power in the world to him suddenly breaking all property laws and denying like dividends to small stockholders and restructuring the entire economy so that he gets everything over the before and doing all of that before AI like itself seizes power and kills everyone. I mean, I'm
I
just
think you're misunderstanding Laumain. But
uh
go on, Soren Vulcan. It seemed like you had.
yeah. So the thing that I'm thinking about is that Sam Altman um, uses becomes extremely powerful because he has stronger AIs than basically anyone else. And then the government in the United States says, "Hey, we would in fact like to tax you some more because that would we can use that to fund a universal basic income." And then he may like take the very unsophisticated action of deploying killer robots against the US government, or he may, in fact, do the very simple thing of convincing the people at the government that they should not increase the tax rate on OpenAI. And given that he has access to dramatically more powerful technology, dramatically better convincing arguments, and better then he may in fact be able to resist the government when they're trying to like impose new tax. Maybe he can find loopholes in the tax because the AI is dramatically smarter. Maybe he can bribe some of them. Maybe he can just convince them, which is like totally a legitimate thing. I think it's basically in his job description to talk with congressmen and figure out how to get OpenAI to pay less tax. And I think he would totally do that.
okay.
I think it's a mistake to think in terms of today's paradigm. I mean taxes, income, welfare. I think they are paradigms of a working capitalist economy. I don't think they will be relevant very, very soon in a few years.
Do you think the AIs will not use a capitalist economy?
No, they don't need it. They don't need to participate in a capitalist economy because, I mean, we obviously wouldn't be able to compete with them anyway. They will completely create their own economies. There is no other alternative.
Okay.
I think for a takeover, for that part, I think I totally buy that argument. I think when we are talking within 3 to 4 years, I am more optimistic. I partially also because I do in fact think that there are a lot of things we are not on track to automate completely within 3 to 4 years. So I believe humans
For
will in
example,
fact have a big role in the inputs to these companies.
can you give any examples?
Power would be an example. Like that is something that these companies like OpenAI needs a lot of power, and in order to get this power, they are probably buying it from somewhere. Perhaps they are like subcontracting with other companies to build new power plants and things like that. And I think this is the kind of thing they will buy outside. Um, they will probably buy a lot of different things outside and pay for that. And I think a lot of these things are like power infrastructure. Like building a power plant would be an example of a task I would expect not to be fully automated within 3 to 4 years. I don't think robots will be able to like, and robots and AI combined will be able to build a power plant uh, in
I mean,
4 years.
yeah, Sam Altman is also investing in nuclear fusion, so I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah, there is a chance that he it's possible to build a fully automated power plant in 4 years. I do think, like on balance, that does seem a bit unreasonable. Like there are many subtasks that go into building a power plant, and many of them, even for regulatory reasons, seem really hard to automate. Like I could imagine regulatory uh, roadblocks being significant. Like they may not be able to find a way around the requirements for like having a human sign off on that the design is safe.
Yeah, I know that the biggest companies really prioritize building their own power sources. I have even heard that Microsoft is planning to build its own nuclear plant
Mm-hmm.
to power its uh, own architecture. So I think it's not a very big problem. I mean, they can just build it within a few years, in my opinion. Especially given that the efficiency of solar power is increasing almost exponentially. And the AI itself may help us with, I mean, that's the exponential part of it, right? The AI also aids us in terms of increasing the effectivity and efficiency of those power sources, may it be solar or nuclear, etc. So I don't see it as a great problem to provide power to your infrastructure, to be honest. They will find a way, to be sure.
Sure. My argument is just that they'll find a way that involves humans, and like I think probably we should perhaps dig a bit more into robotics, because I think that may be a fruitful place where we have some cruxes where we disagree. Um, so a lot of incas or bits have been inconvenienced by people thinking about this Gemini model. How good will it in fact be at controlling robots? And I think if you are envisioning a world where a power plant can be built fully autonomously in 3 to 4 years, um, then I think your expectations of what Gemini can do with robots is substantially higher than mine. Um, could we find maybe find something to bet on, or maybe you could talk about what are your expectations on Gemini? Probably maybe in Christmas, what can a robot with Gemini do?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't have very strict expectations from Gemini. It can be groundbreaking or it may be disappointment. I don't think it will change my timelines too much. I think we will see the real practical developments starting from next year, especially in terms of agentic autonomous systems. But for controlling robots, I'm not sure what you mean, to be honest. I mean, LLMs, language models, and robotics are mainly separate areas, and I have heard about some research that employ language models to control, for example, autonomous cars, etc.
Mhm.
There are some hybrids, yeah, I know, but they are mainly separate research areas, as far as I know.
So, what, like, if you imagine robots can build a power plant completely without human interference, and LLMs design them in 4 years, then what are your expectations for what robots can do in 2 years? Can robots like build a road in 2 years?
Yeah,
Autonomously
probably.
build a road completely
I
without
think so.
human involvement. Build a road. Yeah.
I think so. And for why, again, I need to refer to the exponential phase.
Mm.
AI will help us build better AI. I mean, I think many people are forgetting that. We build better AI,
Mm.
and it helps us design better and better AI, and ad infinitum. So the models, the agentic autonomous models of the next year, I think, will help us build in mass, using mass production, helping us design the optimal conditions for production, and helping us with developing the optimal algorithms, even the optimum material design. Okay, in all of those areas, AI will greatly amplifying our capabilities. That's why I think it's perfectly possible to build those kinds of robots in 2 years. Robotics is not a area that I follow very closely, but I mean, you say P robotics is same level, like 80%. Uh, I don't think it's. Let me say, I don't think robotics is independent from the exponential phase. We may be in an earlier place compared to language models, but robotics, too, in my opinion, is already in an exponential phase because of the feedback effects mainly.
So to clarify, your prediction is that robotics will move at some fixed level, like this year and then next year, slightly more and slightly more, but most of the development will happen in the last year. So 27 there will be a dramatic increase in robots, whereas 2026 there won't be that many robots around.
I mean, that's how exponential curve looks like and works like, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
Um, I would make the argument that you only need robots to have the same basic capability as a human,
yeah,
which isn't that much. It's like a lot of things are exponential, but if all you need is for, say, AI to make art as well as the average human, like we're already there. So like, um,
yeah. Those robots that will work on building roads or building power plants don't need to be too intelligent because people who are working on them aren't very intelligent.
that's not very nice.
But
I
yeah,
think
that's
yeah.
correct. Well, sorry, yeah, that's correct. That's a
Yeah,
fact.
they may not be very intelligent, but like the craftsmanship that goes into like many parts of, like, especially if you're building something like a nuclear power plant, then figuring out how should the pipes actually go in practice to avoid hitting each other. I think this kind of thing is actually really difficult, and there are a lot of
No, I
really
mean, there may be a few humans, of course. I don't deny that. I'm not saying fully 100% automated. I mean,
Huh.
in 3 years, there will still be engineers. Okay,
Mhm.
I don't deny that. But most of the workforce that doesn't require any artisanship, any planning, any intelligence. The work that is just go there and do that, lift that, carry that, it will most certainly be automated.
Something like a plumber, where let's say I have a toilet that's running or something like that. At what point would I be able to get a robot to come and fix that?
I think in a few years. However, Again, us, the ordinary people, probably
How
won't be
much
able to afford a plumber. This, of course, another aspect of my theory.
how much
They
would you
won't.
be willing to bet on that, Vulcan? That in say 2 or 3 years time, what what odds would you be willing to accept on Thorn being able to hire a robot plumber?
At a competitive price. That's important. Because if it's magically more expensive, then it doesn't really influence the economy.
Yeah, more than 50%, I can say.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is it that important? I mean, it's on. Well, uh, I was talking to someone about this, and he told me when I talk about mass unemployment, he tell me, he told me, well, we will need hairdressers. Will robots be able to do that? Will they be hairdressers? Will it be automated in 4 years? That's what he asked me, and I said, why is it relevant? I'm okay. Let there be no hairdressers. Let us cut our own hairs. Okay. So
I'm
what?
Yeah, I'm more
We are talking
thinking.
about a different paradigm.
Yeah, like I could imagine something like hairdressers being the kind of thing that is automated surprisingly early, in the sense that I could imagine a a robot that is basically like this ball you put on top of your head, and then it gives you a really nice haircut in something in a couple of seconds, and then it asks for like $1 for that, and basically humans being totally unable to compete with that. Um,
But I mean, my point is that suppose they are not automated. So what? I think it doesn't change anything.
it depends on how many things are not automated. Like, if it's just hairdressers but everything else is automated, then sure, the hairdressers don't matter very much. But if like there are many of these kind of tasks, like all of them in aggregate matter very much, because that's what the entire economy is made of.
Yeah, the economy of now. But it's a service economy. I mean, hairdressers are part of service economy.
I mean,
I don't think
some of
that
the
service economy will continue to exist without production, without supply, without working supply chain, without
um
some kind of inflation. Some inflation is needed, right, for the sustainment of capitalism.
no no, I mean Japan has had chronic deflation for a really
Japan
long
is not in a
time.
very good shape, really.
But
Yeah,
Yeah,
Japan.
but
not
it's
yet.
not
Yeah,
collapsing.
it's
And
not.
I don't really see a difference between um like um what's the term, subletting your industrial base to a third world country or subletting it to AI factories.
Yeah, there's a
I mean,
difference.
what is the difference?
I mean, have you heard about the recent coup that in Niger, for example?
Uh-huh.
They are not very reliable. And
Uh,
the new rulers of Niger are saying that, well, we won't trade with France anymore. That
okay.
happens.
What
AI is
is
not more reliable. Robots
what?
are reliable.
Is your
Can you say that
argument
again?
subletting to AIs is more reliable than subletting
So
to other countries, or
100%.
I would agree with that. I just don't see why it would cause a supply chain collapse.
Why would we need this kind of complicated, big supply chain in that world? We need the supply
Um,
chain to feed 8 billion people, right?
mhm, yeah.
So, and the 8 billion people work to sustain the system. I mean, not all of them,
Uh-huh.
but you get my point, I think. So
I don't get your point.
what my point is that right now, right now and up to now, the elite wasn't and hasn't been able to give us up, right? They needed us. Okay, our children don't work. There are ill people, there are sick people, there are old people that don't work. But the elite needed to create a system and sustain a system for the working class because they needed the working class. That's why we needed a supply chain that would maintain and feed 8 billion people and nothing else to sustain the system. And I'm saying that we won't be needed anymore. If we become obsolete, why would we? Why would the world need a supply chain?
Well, I mean, so are you saying that the elites are going to shut down these supply chains by force?
No, no, just let it go.
That okay, then why I
No.
then are you saying that elites are consciously trying really hard to make the system work, and that if they stopped trying really hard to make it work,
Yes,
capitalism would stop working?
correct. Yes.
Okay, I completely disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, it's like in China, I know that well, okay, maybe not China. That's not a good example. Um, yeah, I guess you can make a comparison to say the American frontier, like in the 19th century where there was very little central government involvement and the people there just like on the frontier just traded with each other and conducted agriculture
Mhm.
and they shipped some of the stuff they produced back towards the American core and they got some goods in return. I mean, like, so in your world, like if the elites decided to like not try really hard, that would not work. Those people would starve to death.
Well, they certainly
Mm,
wouldn't get the goods, right? Because if the frontiersmen try to sell some of their cattle to New York City, then New York City will say, "Sorry, we don't want that because we can do that
Mm.
without you much better." So it's totally so that trade would collapse, right?
but
The trade between the frontiersmen would not collapse, but the trade towards the American core would collapse.
but here's the
Huh.
main difference. Here's the main difference between 19th century and now. In 19th century, there was a there was a system that people were used to maintain for centuries. It was more or less the same. Okay, they traded. There was local agriculture, but people knew how to maintain that, right? Right now, I'm talking about a sudden collapse. In this kind of situations, people won't just be able to adapt that fast. That's the problem. We won't be able to adapt because we have lost those old ways, so to speak. We don't know how to grow our own food. We don't know how to barter.
So
Okay,
what happens to say a fertilizer factory in your world?
sorry.
So let's say that there's a fertilizer factory in your world. What what happens to make it stop selling fertilizer and buying inputs?
Who will coordinate the factory?
Uh, I
Who will make
mean, people. Well, I mean, right now it would be like managers who are computer assisted, and they put up buy and sell orders on the market, and then
it?
people fulfill buy and sell orders to make money.
I don't think that will work without a global coordination, but it can work to some extent. I'm not saying all the factories will become completely obsolete overnight, okay?
Mhm.
But in today's world, a working global supply chain, I think, is a necessity. because I'm pretty sure that many parts of the tools in that factory is coming from very far away, from China, from South America, from Africa. What will happen when it becomes unmaintainable?
Unmaintainable as in like robot pirates are raiding supply
No, no, no,
lines.
no. I mean, no pirates. I'm saying that there will be nobody, there will be no motivation to
Well,
coordinate
I mean,
the supply chain.
people want to make a huge amount of like people want to be rich. That's why people engage in trade. There's a huge amount of motivation.
Okay, but rich people, in my thesis, will be able to, so to speak, leave the planet thanks to the virtualization and AI. They won't need to maintain ad infinitum if they become rich. That's the problem. So there won't be actually a spectrum, a poor and
But
middle
but
class.
most people
Mhm.
but most rich people work anyways because it makes them feel
I know.
better about themselves.
Uh, yeah, I mean that's today's paradigm. It's not the post-scarcity paradigm, in my opinion. People won't need to be working indefinitely or hoarding money to be happy in the future.
But no, but most really rich people, like rich people who don't have to work, still work to feel better about themselves. I mean, they're already living in a post scarcity world.
Yeah, but they like power. They are
Okay.
working for more power, right? We can agree on that,
Uh,
I guess. And power in today's world is directly correlated with money. I do not think that will be the case in a few years. Power won't mean money. It will be something else,
uh,
but not money.
okay. I mean, right now, power isn't entirely money.
I mean,
I mean,
correlate.
power
No,
is
no. I
power.
just correlate. I said correlated. Of course,
Oh,
not
okay.
heavy,
All right. Yeah.
but heavily correlated. I can say.
Mhm. Oh, before I forget, if I actually could travel back in time to 1935, I think I can probably there's a non-zero chance I can stop the Holocaust.
Yeah, I think I
That and
can
that's
too.
just with the yeah, that's just with the knowledge in my head. For example, I know that President Roosevelt, cheated on his wife, which is not public knowledge. So I can potentially use that to blackmail him into letting in Jewish refugees, for one. For another, I know that a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party, John Rabe, lives in China, and he is a well-known humanitarian, and he has pretty decent contacts within the Nazi Party. So I think there's a non-zero chance I can coordinate some kind of detente between him, the Japanese, and the German government to resettle Jews in China. Um, and that's just with the knowledge in my head. If I can have like Wikipedia, I can probably do better.
So
I'd say
the way I would do it is less political. I would go to Albert Einstein. It's probably possible to and like um, I probably know a lot of funny physics things that he would be surprised about, and then I could talk with him and explain to him in details how to build a nuclear bomb, and go to Roosevelt and build nuclear bombs way better and smarter than what they actually did, and like a lot of if the United States had. And I also know a lot about military history. There's a lot of ways their army could easily be dramatically better. And they would just be able to say, Nazi Germany, don't do that, or we will nuke you, and they wouldn't do it. Like,
I'd say so much really with that, because I think your mode of failure here is linear thinking.
mhm.
Both, I'm both. Sorry, but to be honest, both of your scenarios is like, well, A happens, then B happens, then C happens, and if I intervene at C, D won't happen. But I don't think it works like that. Your actions will have many unintended, chaotic consequences
Yeah,
in reality.
mm, yeah. I think there will be many unintended consequences from this, certainly. But I think, like, I know a lot about military history, and I know, like, literally all the things that United States did wrong during the Second World War. It seems really obvious that a fairly complete list of all their mistakes would cause them to perform really, really dramatically better.
And remember that the Holocaust didn't start like I don't think they really started running the death camps until 1942. So there's that.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of time there, and like uh, the the way they built nuclear weapons, they couldn't figure out how to get the centrifuges working, and then immediately after the war, they figured out how to make these centrifuges. Um, so that seems also like the kind of thing where some extra knowledge in 1935 would mean that they would easily be able to uh, have nuclear weapons much faster.
But what will be the consequences? It may be even worse.
It is possible.
I mean,
Like I can definitely see that. Like I can definitely see, like for instance, there are like uh, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union are two really really bad actors that decided to go to war against each other, and it's possible. It's very possible that by changing history, even in reasonably subtle ways, these two may not go to war against each other. Um, I can
yeah.
totally buy that.
If you go and tell Albert Einstein about how to make nuclear weapons, there is absolutely no guarantee that Nazis will, in some way, uh, get them, obtain them.
Yeah,
And
I
Um,
this is
in my
yes.
in my presentation, if you remember, there's a challenge. I mean, you know quite a lot of things about the current situation, right? Let's leave the World War II. Let's come to today. We are knowledgeable people. We are intelligent people, I think.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm saying just one company, just stop Inflection AI from having 100 times more computation capacity in 2 years. Can you do that? And how?
So
ooh.
right now, I think like the path I'm going down is really easy. I'll build AI60.com, and through the that will be a website that will help galvanize the public to and push them strongly towards a pause, and then the United States government will perhaps with this as some input say that these companies, if they in fact truly believe that there's 10% probability that they will destroy the world, they should make a pause until they no longer believe that. Like this is a reasonable path. Like this is an action. Like I'm taking this action. I don't actually think this will work, uh, but it's not a thing that can't work, right? And if a number of other people did the same thing, then it totally would work.
I don't think so, but yeah, I see where we are coming from. So
So what part of
yeah,
this?
okay.
Like I agree that a lot of people won't actually do this, but what part of it would not work?
You are greatly exaggerating the power of an individual
Yeah,
against the
sure.
bigger trajectory.
Like I can't do that. Like it's a requirement that I convince a lot of people, and these people also do it. So an individual could not influence the United States government that much, but
To
a lot of people could.
repeat, maybe it's the most important thing, and Eliezer is very correct in saying that. And to quote from him, the most important objection to that would be, it doesn't seem like we are living in a world or in a universe that AI will be stopped. Because in that kind of universe, the efforts would start much, much earlier. And there would be much more, much stronger social initiative to stop AI. But when you look around, unfortunately, people doesn't seem to care. And the states, the regulatory powers, in my opinion, just look like sound like they care, act like they care, but I don't think they actually do, because there is no, there is zero concrete action. There is just blabber, no action, and it doesn't give me too much hope for the future.
There's this kind of I forgot this moral maxim of universalization, that you should act in a way that would give good consequences if everybody followed the same rule as you do. Um, I, I think it's something called universalization. Um,
That's an ethical rule,
yeah,
and
and
it's not a practical rule.
yeah, but it would work in this case, right? You are in fact doing the dignified thing of trying to convince the government, and obviously, if everybody or even a substantial minority did this, then that would work. So you are doing the dignified thing. It's an action you can take, and you earn dignity points in the sense that it doesn't actually reduce the probability that your action will avert doom is really really small. But if you're thinking on the luck probabilities, then you do get significant dignity points. I mean, these 5 people standing here are in fact getting substantial dignity points.
How will you stop China or Russia?
Well, I think they may stop themselves. The Chinese people don't want to die either.
Sorry, but I mean, uh,
Like
it
if you can
seems
find an argument that is good enough to convince
a bit
the
too much wishful thinking, maybe.
if you can find an argument that's good enough to convince the American government, then I assign a strong probability that this will also be good enough to convince the Chinese government.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, yeah, I'm I'm certain that you should have read the famous article from Scott, right? About Moloch.
About who? So,
Moloch.
Moravec?
Well, Moloch?
What was the name?
Moloch. Oh, yeah, of
Moloch.
course. Yeah, sure.
Uh,
I
maybe
mean, I
you should
was
read it again.
I would say that you can agree to do things that aren't stable in the long run for a short period of time. That said, I don't think the Chinese government is easily convinced on that end. But, however, uh, if I can somehow start a war between China and Taiwan that would destroy the fabs located on Taiwan, which would prevent the further construction of GPUs for an extended period of time, probably several years. I think just even without my involvement, there's a non-zero chance of that happening anyways, given the way things are happening. So I think there is decent hope for that specific event to stop Chinese AI chip development and potentially Chinese AI development and potentially US AI development.
I wouldn't want to rely on the possibility of war, to be honest, in order to stop AI, but again, that sounds like wishful thinking to me. Again, I mentioned the article of Meditations on Moloch because it's a very nice article that talks about the race conditions and why there is no escape from them.
I mean, there is an
There
escape
is
in
an
the
escape.
short run. Like, people can just agree to not do it if there's a small number of people, and it's like, yeah, for a period of time, people can do that.
Like Xi Jinping and Joe Biden would be 2 people that need to agree on this, and I would expect if these 2 people suddenly became like really hard AI safety believers, then then it's very possible that we would make it. In fact,
Yeah, it doesn't seem very likely to me, but
nope. I
okay,
agree.
because I mean,
We're not gonna get it, but it's not like
uh,
it's
yeah, you know,
impossible.
we did it for nuclear weapons, you will say, but nuclear weapons are much easier, in my opinion, to control and regulate because you need some very specific materials for nuclear weapons. I don't think that's the case for AI, which can be even built in an ordinary laptop. And uh, as I also mentioned in my presentation, the efficiency of the open source models is also looks like it's going exponential.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think the big issue here is that with nuclear weapons, it's really, really obvious to people that nuclear weapons are dangerous. And
Yes.
that's why the convincing people that nuclear weapons is bad is very easy. And both Joe Biden and Xi Jinping knows about this and have thought a lot about this.
Well, I mean, about the nuclear weapon analogy, what we would be actually trying to do is make sure that no one developed nuclear weapons. In reality, what happened was only the strongest powers develop nuclear weapons and threaten with force and economic sanctions the other countries, so they didn't develop nuclear weapons and challenge their hegemony.
Mm. And
Yeah, and
this is a very different situation, right? Because
yeah,
we
very
want
different situation.
that.
Because it would be obvious. I mean, if one country nukes another, it would be quite obvious. It would be a sudden thing, and the nuked country would respond in a similar way. So that's what actually, yeah. I mean, the real thing that stops the nuclear war is mutually assured destruction, not the regulations. That's correct.
I would actually disagree with that. There was a brief period of time when India could have nuked Pakistan. Like there was a period of time when India had a
Yeah,
lot of nuclear weapons and Pakistan didn't have any nuclear weapons, and India knew Pakistan was trying to develop nuclear weapons. There
yeah.
was no retaliation threat, but India decided not to nuke Pakistan anyways.
That's
A
actually,
similar thing, yeah, a similar thing happened with the U.S. and Soviet Union.
actually, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. And here's the thing: we just forget about how many times we came on the brink of nuclear destruction. One time, the US would almost nuke Cuba. Another time, the Soviets would almost nuke the US. And they could have. We are just lucky. Again,
Yeah,
it's just
I
lucky.
almost had a girlfriend in high school. Like
But no, no,
it doesn't mean
it's just
anything.
luck. No, it does mean anything. So there
Yeah,
are
yeah,
some
I get
people
your
who
point.
no, no, it does mean anything, really. There are people who didn't have any chance of getting a girlfriend. If you had almost a girlfriend, that does mean anything, in my opinion. Yeah, the nuclear situation means anything. We could have been destroyed.
I would agree
It
with
was
both of
possible.
them.
Counterfactuals are effective. Maybe, let me say. Counterfactuals are real.
Um,
So we should learn from those almost failures in terms of AI, in my opinion. There are so many failure modes. And in this case, there are many more, exponentially more failure cases, to be honest.
Yeah, there's like a number of different and quite disjunctive ways that things can go bad, given that we don't pause AI. But there is like one single action we can take. We, as in not you and me, but we as a society can take that will make the situation dramatically better. Not necessarily solve it, but make it dramatically better. And that's just to pause
Yeah,
AI until we have solved the alignment problem.
yeah, society is just too abstract for me. Maybe that's the problem. I don't
Mm.
think society is like a single organism that can move towards a given goal. Maybe it's the leftist in me talking here, but yeah, I believe in class divides, and all classes, all social classes, have their own agenda, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, Volkan. Can you say that again?
All classes, I mean, all social classes, the worker class, middle class, capitalist class, ruling class, they all have their own agenda, their own point of view. They have their own world, almost, you can say. I don't think they can move as a single organism towards banning AI and keeping that indefinitely. That
Yeah, I
seems
mean,
very unlikely to me.
it's not about indefinitely. It's just getting more time so people can actually research AI safety stuff. I think that's actually the most
It's,
important part. is to just work really hard on the AI safety problem, and I don't think enough people are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's of course that's something that we didn't discuss today. I mean, actually keeping AI, actually finding ways to keep AI safe and flourish as a humanity, right? But yeah, in my opinion, to put it briefly, I don't think that's possible either. Because eventually, nothing can stop AI from becoming orders of magnitudes more intelligent than us.
Mm.
That will eventually happen. So there's no way we maintain it indefinitely, even if my scenario is not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of AI safety kind of is that. So, I mean, my hope is that if as we do more research, we can find some way of attempting that. But as things are, there's no obvious path towards that. I would agree.
I think it's even conceptually impossible to keep the AI at a certain level. I mean, it will inevitably advance, in my opinion, and it will
Mhm.
inevitably go exponential.
Yeah, I mean,
Today,
I am
if not
saying we
this
need to
decade,
find.
eventually.
I would agree, and I would say that we need to find a way to keep humanity somewhat alive despite that.
Yeah,
And
I
that
mean,
is the overall goal of AI safety.
we can be a zoo animal in the best scenario.
I think I would, in fact, argue that given that we figure out how to coordinate, um, which I don't think we will, but if we do in fact figure out how to coordinate around this, then I think finding a really good solution where humanity reaches its full potential um, is not that hard. Uh, like I can see a number of practical ways where we do this using, for instance, the long reflection and like the coherent extrapolated volition would be another example of something that seems quite feasible, quite possible, and that I think would, if not get us like the literally maximal perfect scenario, then get us like really close.
I would
Yeah,
say that if Sam Altman had an AI that did exactly what he wanted, a safe AI, and he was made dictator of the world, I would say that most I would say that we would mostly get what we want. And I think that's the main point where I disagree with Vulcan. I think your worldview is that he would what would happen if that were the case?
I mean, again, we are focusing too much on individuals. I mean, I don't know much about Sam Altman. I mean, I know how he looks like,
Hmm.
how he presents himself like.
Yeah.
Okay, I
He
don't.
yeah. I would agree with Vulcan here. Like if anyone has played like Dungeon and Dragons, he seemed like the stereotypical 20 charisma villain. Like he presents a really nice facade while trying to destroy the world. Um, so I would like I would not trust him at all.
Yeah, he looks like lawful good, but we don't
Yeah,
know what's inside.
like
And
in general, you can't trust people with 20 charisma.
yes,
Um,
but again, the more important point, in my opinion, is that we shouldn't get too fixated on individuals. I don't think even Elon Musk can stop this trajectory, no matter how good or how evil. I mean, basically, individuals don't matter. The system matters. The trajectory of the system matters here, not
so
individuals.
So I think both Sam Altman or and Elon Musk, if they committed 100% to AI safety, would be able to have a dramatic influence. Sam Altman, for instance, he would in fact like just start a pause, right? That is something
Start.
he could totally individually do. If Sam Altman believed in this, had the same model as I do, he would call for a pause, and he would probably be able to coordinate it with DeepMind and Anthropic, and they would just all have a pause, and that would be hugely beneficial. It wouldn't solve literally the entire problem, but that would be an enormous step forward.
I fully disagree. here, really. That's not possible. Sam Altman can't do this.
Sam Altman can't say stop.
If he decides to do that, they will immediately fire him and bring somebody else. And it won't stop. It's true for all the CEOs in the technology. It is true for Tim Cook. It is true for Satya Nadella and others. If they even think about a stop, a pause, he will be fired next day.
Like I've heard that he does in fact in his contract have substantial leeway and this kind of thing, but that is just rumor, so I don't in fact know that. Let me give the other example, Elon Musk. Like I don't know if he is actually rich, but or he's faking the books. But let's assume instead of Elon Musk, we just take like the richest man in the world. I think the richest man in the world would in fact be able to get much more than 5 people standing out here holding up signs. Like if he literally through all his resources and planned to spend all his money within like 1 or 2 years, he would be able to influence public opinion dramatically more. Maybe that would not be enough, but like Scott Alexander has a funny article about why there's apparently so little money in politics. There's more money in peanuts than in politics.
Yeah, I read that.
I think that's kind of fun, and I think like if Elon Musk if the richest man in the world wanted to spend all his money within 1 year on arguing for a single case, a single thing, then I think it's quite likely that he would be able to actually influence public opinion dramatically.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk is already trained to influence the public opinion, right? I mean, it's
He's
what
not
he's
convinced.
doing.
He's more doing damage. I think he's not giving all his money. There's no expectation that he will have zero money next year.
He just cannot give in all his money. I mean, that's also not feasible.
Yeah, I think he is in fact in some important practical sense not the richest man in the world, because if he tries to spend the money, then it turns out he doesn't actually have the money.
Exactly.
So he's in fact much less rich than what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, he's actually doing his best right now to have a social influence. And is it working? To a degree, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he's not fully committed to AI safety. I think he's
I don't think I don't mean AI safety. I mean, he seems to be fully committed to an alt-right agenda right now.
Yeah.
To what agenda?
Alt-right.
What?
I don't know.
Alt-right. I looked up.
Alternative right.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Oh right. Yeah.
My guess would be that this going to Mars is in fact a bigger thing to him. But I think that's maybe a sidetrack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Going to Mars seems to be Elon Musk's primary goal from the start.
Yeah.
If only the primary goal was to stop AI, but I mean, that's a pipe dream, really.
Yeah.
That's too much wishful thinking.
Well, I think someone pointed to a Metaculus market, a prediction market that said there was like 86% that before 2025 was over, there would be another EA billionaire. So, like, this is a thing that could happen. I don't think it's that likely, and I think there's many other ways you can be an EA billionaire, but one of the things that could totally happen is that another really rich person started to push serious money in this direction. And there are in fact many billionaires, and if you're willing to spend $1 billion, you can totally get more than 5 people to stand outside here, and you can actually do something. And once you get the ball rolling, then I think it feels cringe to be number 5 in this demonstration, but it does once you're number 5,000, then that's like totally a normal thing.
Yeah, it's just too late, in my opinion, to get the ball rolling. Again, in Elizabeth Yudkowsky's words, in an ideal world where we succeed in controlling the AI, the ball would have already started rolling a long time ago.
Sure, we don't have like the sanity waterline is by far not high enough, but that doesn't mean that like waves can't go further up, waves on the sanity waterline, and like it has perhaps hit us in that we are more sane than others. Like we are more convinced about AI risk if we're right, but and the same waves could also hit some random billionaire. And that wouldn't be enough to save us. Far from it. It wouldn't be a certain thing, but it would be something.
But eventually futile. It's just one person. I mean,
So,
yeah.
I think this is a big other topic, but I think I would be willing to defend the general thesis that if we get past even a reasonably small amount of extra coordination now, we do in fact have a real chance of getting the good ending for humanity.
My world model is that there is a giant hole uh, that where we shovel in money for AI safety research, and once we shovel in enough money, it could be um, well, it could be $1 billion, it could be $1 trillion, but once we shovel in enough money, AI safety will just get solved. And like what we really need to do is to find a way to get as much money as possible.
But again, to repeat my point, even if you solve AI safety 100% tomorrow, my scenario is still feasible. I mean, that can happen. The humans becoming obsolete can happen. Even in the case of AI safety becoming 100% solved.
That depends if the way that AI safety becomes 100% safe is Eliezer Yudkowsky's way, where he makes a pivotal act and melts down all the GPUs, and only Miri has any kind of has a super intelligence, and Miri uses that. Then your scenario will in fact not come to pass. So
Yeah,
given we get that solution, then then we won't get this capitalistic systemic collapse that you're talking about.
that's conceptually correct. But again, futile mostly.
Yeah, like it's a big ask that Elias Kowski gets
I
like
can't
gets
argue
into
with
this.
that.
So
I mean, you are correct, but I mean, if a meteor comes and crashes on the Earth, then again, we won't have to worry about AI, of course. But I mean, I think that's a matter of mental model here. Um, you know about AI takeoff. We talk about AI takeoff, slow takeoff, fast takeoff. And in my mental model, the AI is already taken off.
yeah,
When
sure.
we look back a few years later, we will say maybe, well, okay, the AI takeoff started in 2022.
Yeah, I think that that is totally reasonable. Given Bostrom's definition of a takeoff where the AI is substantially helping in improving itself, it's really clear that like OpenAI is using GPT-4 for improving itself. That's totally a thing that's happening, and like that's really like we are in a slow takeoff currently.
Yeah,
Too slow so far.
self-improvement is not a is not that hard of a problem that we think it is. Especially when I take a look at the recent research, it doesn't look
Yeah,
like that.
like it's of course an open question if things will suddenly start to accelerate a lot, but the fact that we are in a takeoff right now is
They are
slightly
accelerating.
controversial.
And things are accelerating right now, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
They are already accelerating. We are already in the exponential phase.
Technically not exponential, right? Hyperbolic, I think.
I think exponential.
I think hyperbolic, but I think this is a different discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we should stop the discussion here. I've appreciated your thoughts, Falcon. I liked your presentation, and
Likewise.
I hope we can do something like this again. I think this would be
Yeah,
fun.
sure.
If someone else has like a claim they would like to defend, like they if they disagree with me, perhaps in a different direction, then that would also be fun to argue. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I have some
Uh,
points, but let's talk about them later.
yeah,
I mean, if no one else has a good thing, I would say that given our current situation, a Chinese pause is very unlikely, and that also a, like Eliezer's world model about like world affairs and like how global treaties work is both sets the tone for a lot of AI safety discussions and also is just completely wrong.
Hmm.
Was
Yeah,
that?
that's actually
Sorry,
what.
Lamin, that was Eliezer's discussion of global trade. Did you say?
Sorry,
Treaties.
global affairs, treaties, and how to enforce an AI pause, I
That
think
won't
is
work.
just
They
yeah, I
simply
think it's just completely wrong, especially in regards to China. There's
yes,
like a general mood in China where I just don't think it would work.
yeah.
And I'll like actually write something and have a presentation and defend my position.
Uh, I would like to talk about this and have a discussion. This is substantially far from my expertise. That I
Okay.
wouldn't be like very confident. I would love to discuss this, and I would like to try to like I can try to find some counter arguments or something like that. But I
Alternatively, I can have a discussion about deception and how I think that if we can get a perfect, like, I think perfect lie detection mechanisms for interpretability tools for detecting lies in AI, I think that having that doesn't do very much for AI safety. And yeah, but I think there's this, let me find that article where um, someone else wrote something about deception.
Yeah, like 4 years ago, we had 4 weeks ago, we had the about like interoperability up against almost all theories of impact, where the author was also making the claim that perfect deception detection wouldn't actually be that helpful. Um,
Oh yeah, you're right. We did do that.
So one other option that maybe we could think about this and then just do like a normal um, presentation in 2 weeks and then think about if we can find something like I wouldn't mind talking about China, but I'm also like unsure about uh, how productive that would be because I think like the assumption is that something really strange happens in the United States that makes the United States want to pause. And the question is then would that also cause China to pause? Um, and I think that's a good chance it would, and you think that seems really difficult, but it's like a hard thing to argue because like what is this
Yeah.
strange thing, right? Is it a good argument? Maybe we find the perfect argument. Like it could happen, um, but
I think a fundamental thing is that no one knows what's going on in China, especially like even me. I live in China and I don't know what the hell is going on. Like I've talked to people in China and their vibes on what's going on in Chinese AI development is like based on less wrong posts, which means that like no information is
mm,
actually getting out,
yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that. Like I have some models about how China work and how even some models about how Xi Jinping works, but like these are really poor models, and there's so many things I don't know. Um, like, yeah,
I'd like to just make one comment that's on the top of my head, and it's a bit late now, maybe too late to raise it, but Søren had a vision of saying that if he went back to 1935 with the knowledge that he's got now, that he could totally um, enable the US to anticipate and defeat Nazi Germany and the Holocaust and win the nuclear arms race back then and so on. And this makes me think that, you know, every new teacher who comes out of teacher training college and goes into a classroom thinks that they, with just the, if they stand in front of the class and they simply present good information clearly and respectfully, and so on, that the class cannot fail. They must get it. They must get it right, and they must be able to grasp calculus because it's so clear and obvious. And
Yeah.
I am absolutely sure that if you were back in 1935, you would present the most brilliant case, Søren, to the who was it then? Was it Truman then? Or was it Roosevelt? I can't remember. Roosevelt. It wouldn't work. It would just, people, they just push, their minds push back and resist, and the arguments don't land. And even if you could threaten Nazi Germany with your brilliant nuclear bombs that you just built, and they won't. They'll go in the same way, basically, much the way that Japan continued on the same course while all its cities were being burned up by conventional bombing. And I don't think when they surrendered, I don't think it was because of the bombs. It was more because of the fact that that Russia had chosen the same day to invade. But anyway, what I'm saying is, people are not like that, and so these perfect arguments and perfect information couldn't change history that way.
That's what
Well,
I was saying. I mean, we overestimate our agency.
Well, no, I would still disagree with that. I think that like if you presented certain like I'm not very good. I'm not very good at math, but I do know certain things about like error correction and information theory. And I think if I went back in time in 1935 and I wrote that out and I walked into a college professor's office and showed him that and asked him if he thought this was something important, he would look at it and be like, "Yeah, this could be useful. You can use this to like error correct telegraph communications or something."
He wouldn't talk to you. He wouldn't listen.
No, you can literally just walk into a professor's office and start talking to them about your kooky ideas.
He wouldn't listen.
Like
He would think you are insane.
that I can do error correction on like telegraph messages. What?
He would think you are insane. He would think you are schizophrenic. Just think about what would a physics professor would think if you go to him or her and try to convince him about that crazy futuristic idea. He wouldn't even listen.
Well, Albert Einstein actually did do that. I mean, yeah, like
You are overestimating your agency again. Both Søren and you.
well, okay, no, I'm not really sure what you mean when you say people overestimate their agency. I mean, the guy I brought up, John Rabe, he literally like just saved like 20,000 plus Chinese people in Nanking because like he built like he built these shelters and he put the Nazi flag on them so the Japanese wouldn't bomb them, and he like tried really hard and managed to save a lot of people.
No, big scale action is possible. I mean,
what?
That's not my point. I'm talking about the bigger trajectory. I think actually one of my main points, which I didn't talk about, is that it may be possible to save people, to save a lot of people, maybe even. But here's the thing: the person you talk about didn't try to end the war. He didn't try to change the bigger picture. He accepted the war as it is. He accepted the massacre and acted within that framework. What AI safety is trying to do is trying to change the framework, not acting upon it or within it. That's the problem. That's overestimating your agency.
How is it trying to change the framework, though? I mean, I think AI safety is two parts. One is global coordination, where we slow down AI development, and the other one is just investing more in AI safety research. That's completely within the framework of our existing system.
What I mean is trying to suit or delay or stop whatever. I don't think it matters too much to fight AI dominance instead of accepting that, instead of accepting the inevitability. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean by AI safety. It's trying to change, to modify a framework that is over your pay grade, that is over your power. If you would act within that framework, maybe you could save a lot of people, but you should accept this inevitable trajectory, in my opinion.
You mean that AIs will be more powerful than humans?
Yes, yes.
Well,
And we should
yeah. I
come to
mean,
terms with it.
what?
We should come to terms, we should accept that inevitable conclusion.
Well, yeah. I mean, I accept that. I just don't really see where we disagree.
I'm basically at that point, at this point, I don't see in a utilitarian perspective, uh, I don't see a benefit in trying to organize a global coordination to stop AI dominance. That's my point.
So, Vulcan, I think like on the naked utilitarian calculation, you may be right that the probability that you can affect change you personally is too small. So how about we change the framing? So instead the of just using the probability that you get it, then we use the log probability, the dignity points, where even if where you get like dramatically more dignity points, even if the absolute change in probability is very small.
I mean, dignity is too subjective. I mean, again, let's give the example of Oskar Schindler. He didn't try to stop the war itself. He didn't directly fight with Nazi soldiers, fight against Nazi soldiers. He did something
Sorry.
which was more right. We can't tell. It's not easy to tell. Should he have tried to go directly against Nazis? Should he have tried to assassinate one of the Nazi officials? Maybe, but he saved lots of people. Can we say it wasn't dignified? I'm not sure.
I think what he did was good, and if he had, in fact, already in 1936 figured out that Adolf Hitler was as bad as they said, and tried to assassinate him at that point, that would have been even better. So what he did was good, but not
I
but
mean,
not the optimal thing.
uh, actually, you can argue that there were even worse people in the Nazi movements than Hitler. But again, I mean, those are just examples.
Yeah, I've
Well, I
actually
mean, actually, now that I think about it, assassinating Hitler has a good chance of preventing the Holocaust, because if Hitler dies, I assume Goring becomes the Führer, and Goring's like never been super into the Holocaust to begin with. Like he's never super been into Nazi ideology, and his brother like ended up convincing Himmler to like stop certain like concentration camp, death camp activities in like late 45 or something. I forget. Anyways, yeah, I think you could, there's you might not get all the way there, but you would make a big difference now that
and
I think
also
about it.
and
Maybe.
also Goering is dramatically less competent than Hitler. Like it seems very unlikely that Goering would be able to pull off this takeover of most of Europe that Hitler pulled off.
Maybe, but again, it's a bit too speculative
It is
and
very
a bit
speculative.
too wishful thinking, in my opinion, because the power balance within a political party is a very complex thing. You just cannot say if it wasn't A, if it was B, things would be much better, because maybe we would see a C or D or E person.
Yeah, like there is in fact a possibility that trying to push for a pause would be counterproductive because of some consideration that none of us have thought about.
Yes.
Like that's totally a thing, right?
And none of us can think about conceptually. We cannot know about that. That's my point.
But that's life. Like you have to operate under uncertainty uh, always in the real world. And it looks like it's a good action, but it's possible it will turn out to be a bad action. But it looks like in expectation, it's a good action. So you take that.
Yeah, but the uncertainty shouldn't push you in a certain direction. I mean, the uncertainty works in two ways. We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, it's also possible that a pause would be much better than we expect.
Or worse.
Yeah, it could be both better or worse.
I mean,
So
your argument, if your argument is we are not certain, so we should go for a global solution, I mean, I think it doesn't follow.
no, my argument is not that because we are not certain about what is the best solution, we should go for a pause. We should instead look at the world, see what do we think is the best solution, and we cannot say for certain what is the best solution, but it looks very much like a pause is the best solution, and then we go for that, and we recognize that maybe we are wrong, but it doesn't look like it's the best thing to do.
Okay. In my opinion, yeah, it's the best solution, but it's the best theoretical solution,
Yeah,
not the best practical solution, unfortunately.
yeah, the game board looks rather grim.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm thinking it's getting really late. How would you feel about that? I just make the decision. Like, I found this by a Kotra, this scale, Schlep, and systems that I think looks really interesting. And a Kotra, of course, is the key person in OpenPhil that decides who they want to fund, and they're like the biggest funder, and the people they fund are probably also like what other people fund. So she's like the central person, and like understanding her models is really important. And she's written this that I think is really important. I just skimmed it, but it looks quite good. So I'm thinking this would be a good example of something we should read for next time. What does people think about this?
Yeah, sure. That sounds really interesting.
It does. You have the power, Søren,
Yeah.
because you're the one who's
Yeah,
taken the trouble to look for something. What does she mean by schlep?
that is in fact a good question. I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure. So I guess we'll read the article and find out.
Okay. And I will ask Mr. Google.
Yeah. Then I will get to say that. Maybe a German accent. We'll see next time. Okay, I think I should stop the recording now.